right, we have a couple of things to talk about today. Your mandalas are due. Your mandalas are due Friday before class. Okay? There will be a submission document and a slides document to put your image into for when we do our quick share. So make sure that you are leaving yourself some time to complete that. All right, tomorrow you will have time to do that as well. And I'll go through that submission document tomorrow for those of you who are new to that. You're asking me permission while I'm instructing.
Gosh, mid-film? Mid-film?
I was doing hand signals.
Because I saw the hand signals. Yes, you may do that.
Mid-film, are we really doing that right now?
I was doing it.
Yes, if you need to take a progress photo, please go ahead and do that. Thank you for asking. Okay, so plan accordingly for being able to take your final photo and then fill out the submission document. It's not going to be a humongous one. It's not going to be a humongous critique. It's just going to be a small critique, small share. But there will be one nonetheless, and that will happen on Friday. So you need to have that uploaded and filled out before Friday. It is probably not posted yet though, so don't go looking right this moment. Okay, that's on my to-do list for today. In order to finish your mandala, okay, some of you are finishing with a little time to spare, so you might have the opportunity to take like a fine line marker and add additional detail or add additional depth, or maybe shade over with a colored pencil to create some dimensionality, or whatever that looks like for your particular design. We also have the option, which I think is a good one, particularly if you're thinking in the direction of possibly using your mandala for your cabaret submission. We have all this colored construction paper over in the green bag next to the mirror on the counter over there. If you want, can I use yours as an example for a second? You can cut out.
Mine is so beautiful.
Thank you. You can cut out your design, like the mandala part of your design, the contiguous part, and then attach it to a colored paper, okay? And you can hold up your design to all sorts of different colored papers and see what color best supports the design that you have and the elements that you want to pop out a little more. So all of the colored paper is over there. We also have some in the colored paper cabinet. Okay? So make sure you leave yourself time to do that prior to before class on Friday. And I would also, if I were you, I would photograph it with that colored paper as well so that we can get the whole effect when we see it up on the screen. Okay? Questions on kind of wrapping up mandalas within the next day here? You will have some work time tomorrow as well. So tomorrow is technically your last work day. Today, because of the snow day, all right, I want to be very clear about this. Because of the snow day, we're going to multitask today. But normally, when I'm presenting, there will not be work time at the same time in order to best focus, okay? But for today, I'm making an exception because I don't want you to miss out on work time because of the snow day. Okay, so just so we all understand kind of where we're at. Some of you, transitioning to Sketchbook now, some of you are very familiar with the Sketchbook assignment because you just did it last semester. That's another reason why we're multitasking today, because not all of you need this level of detailed instruction. However, some of you do because you have not done the Sketchbook assignment with me in this manner before. So I want to make sure the expectations are clear. I want to make sure that everybody's on the same page. Haha, Sketchbook humor. And make sure that everybody understands what we're going to do moving forward for the next 30 pages in 8 weeks or so. Okay? So artists use sketchbooks in a number of different ways, right? All sorts of different ways. They use it as a place to take notes. They use it as a place to kind of keep their ideas and collect their ideas. A lot of artists use different sources. You guys especially need to pay attention because you haven't had this before. This is for you. They might be collecting ideas from different sources, maybe cutting things out of magazines, maybe taking screenshots and printing them out, maybe cutting things out of newspapers or ads on, I've had people be inspired by junk mail before. So there is design inspiration in all sorts of different places, and you just have to kind of be open to seeing that and being in the habit of collecting it so that you can use it in the future, okay? Your sketchbook is going to be the place where I want all that to kind of filter down into in one place, okay? So we take that time, first 5 minutes of every class to draw on our sketchbook, and the goal of that specific time is to focus ourselves, to kind of help ourselves mentally transition from one class to the other. You guys need to stop, please. That's the last time I'm going to say it. We can transition from one class to the other. Some people use that time to review what they just did in their last class and use that as a source of inspiration for their drawings, because when you connect one subject to another, that can help you retain that information. Some people use that time as a way to pray and to reflect and to journal and to have your drawings be inspired by some sort of prayer or reflection. So you can kind of use that in all sorts of ways. And that doesn't have to be the same from day to day. You might use it for prayer one day because that's what you feel like you really need. You might use it for review in another day because that day, if that makes sense for you. You might use it to brainstorm one day because you come in, you have all these ideas and you want to make sure you jot them down before, they evaporate out of your brain. I know I get that feeling a lot. I tend to use my sketchbook as a thought recorder where I can kind of write down things in an attempt to not lose them because the focus for me becomes very, very difficult, right? And then you can't remember stuff. So there's all sorts of ways that you can do that. That's up to you to manage that time from day to day. But I will always give you the first 5 minutes in order to do that, okay? In that amount of time, you're going to be working towards a goal of 30 pages by the end of the quarter, okay? Now I know 30 sounds like a lot, but there are more than 30 days between now and then. So as long as you keep up with one a day, you should be fine. In fact, you probably will come up with a few extra in that amount of time if you're pretty vigilant. That also builds in a couple of days, like let's say you're sick for a day, or you have a field trip, or a retreat, or some reason to miss class. Typically speaking, there is enough kind of extra grace days built in that you should be okay. However, nonetheless, regardless of your schedule and how your attendance works out, you are responsible for 30 pages by the time we get to the end of the quarter. And by the end of the quarter, I actually mean like the week before the end of the quarter so that we have time to grade and see where our grade settles, okay? I will give you a specific deadline for that, not today, but I will give you a very specific deadline, okay? So that will be coming. As far as how your sketchbook is going to be graded, I have to scroll here. Okay. I'll be looking for, believe it or not, I'm not looking for drawing skills. I know that seems really counterintuitive to say in an art class that I'm not going to grade you on drawing skills, particularly in a sketchbook, but that's not actually the focus of what we're doing. The focus of what we're doing is we're using our sketchbook to build our creativity, okay? So if we were, let's say, a basketball player, some exercises we might do to build our basketball skills might be dribbling, might be shooting free throws, might be running in order to build our stamina and our endurance, right? So for art, those exercises look a little different, but they work very much the same. So we want to build our creativity. Creativity, believe it or not, is a skill that you can develop and get better at and improve, just like a muscle that you strengthen. Okay, you just have to work at it, right? So we strengthen that creative muscle by pushing ourselves out of our comfort zone, by trying things, taking creative risks, even if we're not sure that they might work out. And our sketchbook is our safe place to be able to do that. Okay? So that's why we don't want to put pressure on ourselves to make things in our sketchbook look perfect or look realistic or even look good, because we want to have that comfort and that safety to feel like we can take risks in our sketchbook. We can try things even if we're not sure they're going to work. We can work on things in a practice sort of way that we might not intend to show people, or we might not intend for people to see, because it's not our best work, but it's the practice work that gets us to our best work. Does that make sense? We all with me?
Yes.
Okay. So the way that we see that, and the way that we kind of push ourselves in that direction, is by focusing on variety. So we want to kind of push ourselves to come up with as many ideas as we can. Think of it as a lot of brainstorming, right? We want to do experiments. We want to try out different materials, different subject matter, different techniques, different styles. We don't want to sit and repeat the same kind of comfort zone type of work. Okay? Let me give you, and I've used this example before, so this might sound like review. Let me give you a little summary of how creativity works. Okay? If I gave you a challenge, let's say I said, create 50 different smiley face designs. Okay? You would start the first couple of, can you close that door please? The first couple of designs that you would start with would be ones that you remember. You would go to your recall memory first. You would think like, okay, which ones do I remember seeing? You might think like through your phone, okay, which emojis, draw 50 different smiley face designs. Okay, so you might think, okay, these ones I know are in my phone. These ones I see in conversations with people a lot. These ones maybe I saw in a commercial that I saw today, or whatever. Okay, you're gonna go to your recall memory first. And then, let's say maybe around, I don't know, 15 or 20, I'm just throwing a number out there. You're going to hit that point where your recall runs out. Where all of a sudden, you can't remember anymore.
Oh no.
Right?
You're like, oh shoot.
I want you to understand what's actually happening in your brain. Because what tends to happen is people feel frustrated in that moment, because it does feel frustrating to not be able to think of anymore. But I want you to understand why that is happening and what is actually happening. Your recall is running out. You have exhausted that resource mentally, right? Yes. What most people do when they hit that point is what? They give up. Why is that a bad idea?
Then you can't imagine your own.
Right. If you give up, that would be like saying, oh, well, I can't run anymore, so I guess I'm just done, right? Are you going to get better as a runner if you don't push past that?
No.
No, probably not, right? You don't go into the gym and lift 1 pound weights thinking that you're going to get any better, right? You need to challenge yourself. So instead, you hit that end of your recall, okay, and then any ideas that you come up with after that, frustrating though they may feel, are actually your most creative ideas, because your brain has to switch from recall and just remembering to actually generating new stuff. And that's where the creative muscle engages and starts to work and grow and be active. Okay? So I want you to understand how that process works, because if you don't have that understanding, you probably will give up after you hit that point. And then your creativity is not going to get any challenge or any improvement or development at all. And instead, we want to kind of live in that creative push zone, right? So that we're actually working out that creative muscle. We're challenging ourselves. We are generating and creating new stuff. Now that doesn't mean that it's all going to be good stuff, right? When we brainstorm, not all the ideas that we write down are good. But we have to generate and we have to brainstorm and we have to create and then go back and refine, pick out the good stuff, weed out the stuff that is not as strong, right? That's just part of the creative process. That's very normal. I want you to be comfortable with that and I want you to accept what is happening so that you can kind of work accordingly. Does that make sense? You all understand that?
Yes.
Okay. So, that's why I'm not looking at drawing skills. I am looking at how are you pushing yourself to come up with new ideas that might be out of your comfort zone, that might be risky because they might not work out because it might be new to you. I want you to take the risks, even if it doesn't work out. Okay? The grades that you are going to get from your sketchbook come from 3 different places. Okay? I can take random checks. Alright? Random checks are exactly how they sound. You're gonna walk in one day, I'm gonna say turn in your sketchbooks. That's all the notice you're going to get for a random check. Okay? That means that you need to keep up on your sketchbooks all the time. You need to always be up to date. That means we're not leaving all 30 pages till the week before the sketchbook is due. That means we're not, getting a week behind because we just decided that we're going to procrastinate, right? That means you have to keep up with stuff, keep things up to date, because if I take a random check, I'm gonna look for, okay, how far are we in the quarter? That's how far you should be in your sketches. Okay, so you should be at least that far, or maybe even a little ahead. That would really benefit you for a random check. Okay, the biggest grade, your quarter evaluation, that's not only the biggest sketchbook grade, but it's the biggest grade for the whole semester, the whole quarter. Okay, so that's gonna be a 120-point grade. The reason it's the biggest grade is because when you add up all those little 5-minute work times, it's actually longer and more time than we spend on any other project, believe it or not. Doesn't feel like it, but it is. Okay? And then you will have a self-reflection at the end of 3rd quarter where you'll look through your sketchbook, you'll kind of assess, right? You'll reflect, you'll say, what have I done really well? What's working? What have I grown a lot in? What areas then do I still need growth in? Or can I work a little harder on? Or can I try a new strategy for? And then you'll set some goals for 4th quarter based on what you identify from your work from 3rd quarter. Okay? So then the points for your sketchbook look like this. You'll get a little half-sheet rubric. Looks like this. Okay, so this has your breakdown. This is the exact same from last semester, if you were with me for that. This is how your 120 points break down. So 30 of those come from, did you actually fill the number of pages that are required, which is 30 by the end of the quarter. Okay, now keep in mind, we're doing 5 minutes a day. So I'm not expecting like highly detailed drawings, but I am expecting you, again, this is a way to push yourself to try to fill that page. Okay, for most of you, it's just gonna mean drawing larger than you normally would feel comfortable doing. But that might mean different things for different people depending on what your comfort zone is, right? Okay, 30 points. Does your, do your pages include a variety of ideas? Okay, so are you staying in your comfort zone and just repeating stuff, or are you actually trying new stuff and pushing for stuff and using a variety of materials and a variety of styles and a variety of techniques, and you're getting your ideas from a variety of sources, and you're pushing yourself to really reach for different ideas? Okay, so 30 points for that. 30 points for demonstrates creative visual development. That's a fancy way of saying, does it show progress over time? Okay, where people get in trouble with showing progress over time is if there are big gaps in when they do their drawings. So if you do like 10 drawings one week and then it's 2 weeks until you do 10 more, then that's really hard to show progress over time. Similarly, it will go back to the variety idea. If you don't have enough variety, you're not pushing yourself creatively, if your stuff gets too repetitive, that also too becomes very hard to show progress over time. Okay? The next 15 points come from, do you include dates on your entries? This is a life skill, this is an organizational skill. This also speaks to the idea that sketchbooks are documenting your growth as we go through the quarter and as we go through the semester. So having those dates becomes very important so you can document how you progressed, okay? Also, if you don't have dates, very hard to show progress over time, right? So they kind of stack on each other. And then 15 points for does your sketchbook hold together securely? So as you're collecting these different sources, as you're maybe collaging materials, maybe you drew on a napkin at a restaurant one day, you put that in your sketchbook, right? All of those things that you're putting in there, maybe you doodled on a math assignment, and after you are done with math class, you can put that in your sketchbook. All these different things that you're collecting, you can do that. Attach them in, just make sure that they are secure. Okay, not only for your organizational sense, but from a grading standpoint, I need to be able to flip through really, really quickly. And if things are flying all over the place and I can't get a good sense of what page comes after what and where they go, then that becomes very difficult. Okay, so does this rubric and point breakdown make sense to you? Okay, good. Let's look at some examples. Okay, so these are excuse me, some ways that different artists that I found on the internet use their sketchbooks to give you some ideas. Some of them might apply really strongly to you, some might not apply at all, but you might be able to still get an idea from them. But these are just all sorts of different ways that artists use their sketchbooks. So this particular artist works a lot with pen and ink. She draws and writes with a combination of words and sketches. There's not a ton of detail in either one. It's kind of more, this is like visual note-taking. This particular artist works in watercolor with ink. Now these are more detailed than I would expect for 5 minutes, clearly, okay? And you can go back and rework some of your pages if you feel inspired to, that's totally fine, but it's not expected or necessary or required. But what I think is also creative about this is that they use the whole spread. So a spread is 2 pages next to each other with that binding in the middle. And so you can sometimes think of your spread of 2 pages as one design, and you can kind of bridge the 2 together. I also think that this artist, even though the style is similar, they do a good job of creating a variety of different subjects and different topics. So we see anything from like one pretty big and pretty detailed object per spread to 6 different but various objects per spread to kind of this like filling the whole spread with this repetitive texture where there's less variety but a little more unity, but they're really filling that space and working with pattern and repetition. So there's all sorts of ways that you can kind of approach this. These are not my images, but if you were to take pictures of my sketchbooks, this would be kind of the closest to how I process. I tend to do a lot of words, I tend to do some kind of vague sketches, and I kind of connect the 2 together in whatever way is the quickest. Because like I said, I use it more as a thought recorder. So my goal typically is to kind of get things down as quickly as I can before those ideas, evaporate away. And then I can come back to those ideas and critique or refine or evaluate or assess those ideas later after the fact, okay? So you can do that too. We see some different materials in here. We see like different colored pens being used. We see some watercolor. We see some like tape up here. So you can stick different things on. You can layer all sorts of different things. This is kind of part of the creative process of like working through ideas for a project where they're kind of experimenting and trying things out, working things through before they decide on what they're going to actually do. This artist works pretty exclusively with prayer, but in different ways. So you see some of it is like actual writing, kind of like journaling and reflection. Some of it is illustration based on what the writing is or what the prayer is. Some of it is just like a single word or a single phrase where they kind of fill the page with that and then use that as kind of their way to focus and maybe meditate or pray. This one seems really interesting because it has like a combination of a whole bunch of stuff. It almost feels like a collage, but it's drawn. So there's some pencil drawings, there's some blue ink drawings, there's some pink marker drawings, there's different quotes in here, there's words, there's illustrations, they're kind of layered on top of each other, there's textures, there's a whole combination of stuff happening in that one. And I know this artist in particular kind of has the different pages relate to each other, even though they look very different and they're still kind of focusing on a variety of styles. So that could be something that resonates with you and that you respond to. This artist would give himself challenges. This was a 30-minute challenge. He went to a public place, he sat down, set a timer for 30 minutes, and tried to draw everyone that he could see in that public place in 30 minutes. So you see some people only have faces, and some people don't have faces or feet or lower parts of their body. So there's that kind of visual observation challenge. You can come up with all sorts of challenges for yourself in that way to push yourself. You can do some work in like observational drawing skills, stuff like that, but remember we still want to focus on generating new ideas. So if you're going to take this approach, make sure it's in addition to other variety of ideas. This artist worked with ink and watercolor and I think gel pens, all sorts of like different colored materials, not necessarily complicated subjects, but kind of working with how different materials worked together and interacted together. And then this artist actually sewed different parts of the pages together as a way to create actual texture on the page. So she did some cutouts where you see the page from behind being shown through. There's some magazine collaging, there's some found material collaging, like leaves and stuff like that. We've got the sewing, we've got marker and watercolor happening, so lots and lots of combination of materials. And then this artist used that idea of combination of materials also, but with things like cut magazines and markers and paints and pen and ink that way. So they kind of created their own like painted backgrounds and then collaged magazine parts on top. Is this more than 5 minutes? Yes. Okay, but the ideas can be also used. So I will give you guys more work time tomorrow, and we'll talk about submission documents tomorrow as well, and then you'll be ready to go meet for class on Friday. On the drying rack if you have to.